Whoa, there you are. Welcome back to Leveling Up, guys. I'm so excited that you're here. I have an amazing guest today for you. This is someone that is the 2021 World Champion of Public Speaking. And if you're like, whoa, Brigham, how did you get to know her? Guys, I literally reached out to her and she was so accepting and welcoming of this message that she wanted to go out there and give a gift to all of you with not only her presence on the podcast, but we actually have really fun acronyms for you that have to do with gift, and you do not want to miss it because we both have different takes on this idea, but they are so valuable that you're going to want to listen all the way to the end and see why all of these stories fit together and how we can not just have great presence on stage, but to be able to give a present to our audience. And today I hope that you feel like you got a gift because it is going to be just a blast to be here. Verity Price, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, first off, people that don't know you yet, you're missing out. So why do people need to know you and what is the mission behind what you're doing? Tell us your origin story.
Well, that is a long story, so I will give you the short version. I
Absolutely.
was the kid who went from being very confident to being bullied when I got the
Mm.
lead in the school play and deciding I never wanted to stand in an audience ever again.
Oof.
So by the time I finished school, I was terrified of being on stage. But in my first year of university, I started songwriting and realized that I needed to get past this fear. I needed to find my confidence
Mm.
and share my songs with the world. It took losing my dad very unexpectedly when I was 24 to
Mm.
wake me up to the fact that I could not make my dreams come true in my bedroom. I
Mm.
needed to get out into the world, leave my comfort zone, and face my fears. And that's what I did. But from writing my first song to starting to sing professionally, it took me 7 years to find the confidence to do that, working with coaches, doing my own internal work. But from 27 years old, I had moved past my fear of being in front of people. I loved connecting with an
Mm.
audience. I embraced the music industry. I didn't crack
Yeah.
the music industry. I did not become a famous pop star. That was my plan. But I crowdfunded an album in
Mm.
2005 before it was something that people did. And that was when I started speaking. I had to speak to people about buying an album I hadn't recorded. And I discovered that I loved talking about things that excited me and messages that I thought were meaningful.
Mm.
And since then, for the last 20 years, I've been in the space of motivational, inspirational speaking. And in 2021, I was lucky enough to win the Toastmasters World Champion of Public Speaking. And now I help other people find their voice, build their confidence, and present with power.
See,
That's the short
guys,
version.
this is why you need to get to know Verity. So you've got 20 years of experience in this business, helping people build more confidence on stage, off stage. This is one of the reasons why we're so aligned in what we do. I'm so grateful to have you on today. Let's first set up why stage presence is so essential to being the very best version of yourself on stage. And let's talk about what stage presence means to you first.
Such a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked what does stage presence mean to me, but it really comes to that word presence.
Mm.
I love seeing people get on a stage or in front of an audience who are present. They're
Mhm.
present with themselves, they're present with the audience. And even if their presence is quiet or
Yeah.
shy or reserved, if it's authentic, if it's from the heart, they have a presence that holds attention. So for me, stage presence is that ability to be present, be in the moment, be with what's happening, because that's when the audience gets to know you, not the projected image of, oh, I've come to give you a show, but rather I've come to show who I am and share it with you.
It's a beautiful way to think about this. When I think of stage presence, it's not just the facade of who you are, it's everything within as well that can come out. I think that's a good portion that people don't always think about. They only see what's on the outside. But if you don't have it connected to what's on the inside, there is a distance that's created between you and your audience. But as soon as you're like, you know what, I love this message, it is going to just exude from my core, my center, and come to you.
Yeah.
There is a connection that happens. And great stage presence, it's not just about posture. It does help, And it's not just about having the right vocal quality and tone to your message.
Mm.
It's making sure that everything is in alignment, that
Mm.
everything is on point so that when your message comes out of your mouth, it makes sense with your whole body, with every element of you. Now, what is a story where you have maybe seen someone, or maybe it was yourself, where you're like, wow, I did not have a lot of stage presence in that moment? I want to hear one of those horror stories of like, oh, I wish I would have been paying closer attention because that didn't happen the way it was supposed to.
Well, in a funny way, the story I want to share with you was one of my biggest successes on stage, out of like a the last thing anyone wants to happen to them on stage.
Hmm.
And this was quite a few years back, about 15 years ago. I was backstage in Johannesburg, South Africa, about to do a big talk to a huge audience, 700 people. And I had one of those little Britney Spears, Madonna head mics on.
The
I felt like
lavalier,
such a
yeah.
pop star. I was ready. I was like, woohoo. And I was getting a proper rock star welcome from the MC, and the crowd was going wild, and I just came running up those stairs. I couldn't wait to be with that audience. I was really excited. And I got to the last step and I tripped.
Oh, shoot. Oh, just like Superman right
Face first,
on the
like
stage.
proper face first on a
Oh man.
stage. And there was just this from the audience. 700 people collectively like took the oxygen out the
Uh-huh.
room. And I'll never forget this. I had worked with a confidence coach in the States,
Hmm.
outside in Naples, Florida, many years earlier, who used to, his way of building confidence was to make everything that could go wrong in our
Hmm.
rehearsals. And he said, when things go wrong, just keep on. And I thought they were really weird, his lessons. I was like, has this really helped me? I don't know. But here I was, face first, in front of 700 people, and all his training kicked in. And I'll never forget, I looked around at them off the floor and they all just looked horrified. And I said, well, folks, I can only go up from here. And it was such a beautiful moment of connection, of vulnerable authenticity. And that's when I learned that when you're okay with things not being okay, you will always be okay. That's confidence. And
Mm.
so now if I fall, if I forget my words, if I make a mistake, I just be with what's happening. And then there's way more connection with the audience. So it was one of my worst and best moments all at once.
That's so great. Oh man, I can picture that wipeout moment and then being able to bounce back so beautifully. This is what going through the gauntlet of being a speaker is all about, because sometimes you're going to have mistakes that happen. Not sometimes, pretty much every time you're on stage, something's not going to go right. You're going to have a mic go out. You're going to have something. But when we respond with just playfulness and connection with our audience, that lets them know that you're okay and they're okay. And it's all right to not be okay perfectly in the moment and
Mm.
acknowledge what happened. When you think about presents with, with like a gift,
Yeah.
why do we talk about giving a present or a gift to your audience? And then we can dive into the rest of this, but talk to me
Mm.
about your thought process of understanding, hey, when we are giving a great message, it is like giving a gift. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that idea hit me after I won the World Championships in 2021, and people were asking me to run master classes on what had I learned about winning speeches and winning speech contests. And I suddenly was looking at this word presenting. We call it presenting, and I thought, oh my word, I've been doing this for so long, and I've never looked at this word presenting, and it's got the word present in it.
Mm.
And there's two meanings to that. The one is what we've just been talking about, which is presence, and that is to be.
Mhm.
So to be present is the presence that your audience feels from you, but present also means to give.
Mhm.
And it just hit me that a speech is a gift you give your audience. It's not for you. You're not saying it for you, you're saying it for them. And are
Yeah.
you giving it in a way that helps them to take it home, to use it, to do something with it? And all too often people, when they present, they're giving the speech to themselves because they know what they're
Mm,
saying, but their audience is taking nothing away. So when you think about a speech being a gift for your audience, it changes the way you approach it, the way you write it, and the way you deliver it.
beautiful. Sometimes I think of the way that I open my iPhone as just a customer experience. If you've ever had
Mm,
that type of experience where you have a well-made product, you take that film off and like, oh, that was really awesome. That felt really exciting. Get the chills, and you
yeah.
take that almost vacuum sealed box apart. And you're like, oh, this is so good. If you have that type of intentionality with your message, that every moment you're allowing a discovery for your audience to take those dots and let them connect them, suddenly
Mm,
that feels like you're giving them so much more than just, hey, here's the thing. You're letting them go on a journey.
yeah.
One of the things that stuck out to me early on, I was a new actor. I was at a place in my career where I was struggling a little bit mentally. I was really tired. It was after like a 3-show day. And one of my good friends, he was a seminary teacher, and he was an actor with me. And he ended up taking us right in the green room while everyone was super tired. We had one more show that night to do. And he said, all right, all you guys, we're in a play called Damn Yankees, a musical. He's like, all right, boys, we're gonna talk together. I need to share this with you. This may be the only time that any of these audience members have ever seen this show. It may be the last time they get to see it. So let's give a gift to our audience. And that little idea
Mm,
like was planted into my head and then into my heart, and it shifted everything for me. The way that I performed, the way that I thought about all of the things that we had done for months to make sure that we could package
mm,
this into a very beautiful presentation and deliver it to our audience. Every single show after that was different, and I've literally fundamentally shifted because of that moment. This is the
wow.
power of giving a gift. Now, when we think about giving, what comes top of mind for you, Verity, when you're talking about giving?
Well, for me, giving is thinking about someone else and
Mhm.
thinking about what they need and how they want to get it. And it should be in a way selfless, but it should also be creative and
Yeah,
expressive because the more that's put into the giving, the act of giving, the more people get from receiving it. So it's a beautiful two-way process of thoughtfulness, creativity, and thinking about someone else, not yourself.
that's beautiful. Now, this is part of my framework, this idea of giving. If you are able to give and take with an open hand, that means not only are you able to build a connection with someone, they're able to come back and help you in return. There is a give and take in every relationship. If you give a gift, who is it that's benefited?
Yeah,
Literally both people. The
I love
receiver
it.
because they got a great gift, and then the giver because you get to see the response and the reaction like, oh, I'm so glad that landed. That was great. And sometimes you give a gift and they're just like, oh, it's an avocado. Thank you.
Eh.
I'm so grateful for that. But I wanted to now switch over to your framework when we're talking about gift. Guys, this is going to spell out gift for you. But you talked about get clear on your message. I think this is so important. Clarity builds confidence. I talk about that in my book, The Story Hook Method. Talk to me about why clarity is so important in giving a gift to your audience.
So this for me is the first step of great communication is getting clear on the message you want the audience to take away. That
Mhm.
is the actual gift. The message, 10 words or less, easy to say, easy to repeat, easy to remember. That's what they're probably going to repeat to someone else. If you've told some great stories, they might tell them that story or that analogy, but often it's the message that, and I call a good message a sticky statement. Easy
Mm,
to say, easy to repeat, easy to remember. It's like the hook of a song, and when you get clear on that message, it makes it so much easier to craft your content around it. Whereas I see with the majority of people I coach, they'll come to me with content, but when I say to them, what are you trying to say? They're still explaining it to me 10 minutes later.
mm,
And I think it was Diana Boyer says, if you can't say your message in a sentence, you're not going to be able to say it in an hour.
yeah.
So getting clear on your message, saying it in a memorable, unique, insightful way is probably one of the most powerful ways to boost your own confidence, to make you feel like, this is what I want to say, this is what I stand for, and then build your communication around that. So that's why it's my first step for powerful communication.
Beautiful. I talk about how you have every story has a point and every point has a story. If you're not able to distill your frameworks or your ideas into simplicity, into its essence, you don't actually know it in depth. One of my favorite analogies for this is if you are trying to teach your message to a toddler and they're not getting it, you don't understand it deep enough yet. It's when you can simplify to the point that it can't be simpler that you understand it. That's the core.
Yeah, I love
Beautiful.
that.
Now, when you're talking about gift, this is the way that I frame this. You want to make sure that it is indelible. Your message is something that is just like that ink on parchment. As soon as it touches the paper, it adheres and it will not leave their mind. So how does an indelible message happen? I want to hear your take on that.
I would say indelible messages happen through story. They happen through stories that are vulnerable, that are entertaining, that are insightful, that really create a change of heart in people as they listen to them. That's what people remember. And so it's going deep. And maybe just to build on where you find these indelible stories, because sometimes we think they have to be really big moments and these like significant things that have happened, and they don't. They really don't. And this concept of gift reminded me of something we do in our family, which started about 12, 13 years ago around Christmas, because Christmas for us is a month of Christmas shopping and wrapping and spending money and buying stuff people probably don't need. And then we will spend 6 hours on Christmas Day unwrapping those gifts. Gift giving's big in our family. And the one year we just said, you know what? We're wasting a lot of time, a lot of money on stuff we don't need. We still want to give, we still want to receive, but how do we do it differently? And we came up with the idea of a white elephant Christmas. So white elephant, this thing you have that you bought maybe late night shopping that is sitting on a shelf or top of a cupboard, it's gathering dust, you never use it. And the idea was everyone would go and find that white elephant thing in their home, wrap it beautifully, and give it, someone else would get it at the Christmas party. And I tell you, I have not laughed the way we laughed that day, because there were oversized coffee mugs and never before used cookbooks. There was even a rusty, dusty hamster cage. It still had the sawdust in the bottom. So people went all out with stuff they didn't want, but they wanted to give away. And what was interesting was the more fun someone had guessing what it was, tugging at the string, pulling at the tape, pulling the paper away, a bit like your iPhone, the more fun they had unwrapping it, the more they seemed to like what they got. And they'd suddenly go, oh, I'm going to use this coffee cup as a pot plant holder, or wow, this cookbook, I'm going to impress, the next people who come for dinner. And it showed me that there's value in things that we think aren't valuable anymore. And it's the same with stories. You could have had a moment in traffic, a frustration with getting stuck, and something that helped you to navigate that, or something that happened in the supermarket that illustrated kindness. And told well, those stories will make your message indelible. But often people are putting pressure. The story has to be, Hollywood. No, it needs to be sincere, from the heart, enjoyable, and it often will make your message unforgettable.
Beautifully said. I love this expression, 好记性不如烂笔头. In Mandarin, that means the faintest of ink is brighter than the best memory. And when you are willing to take notice of those magical moments in your life, you actually write them down or you record them. This is one of the ways I do it. I utilize my podcast to share great stories. You are now giving that gift to somebody else. But think about this. Every time an old lady or an old man passes away, a library burns to the ground. If they didn't take the time, energy, and effort to record their experience into life lessons, they didn't put their stories and their experience into a format and a codified way that other people can benefit from it, even though they had those amazing experiences, it dies with them or with the few people that they shared it with. that's the value of getting your story, those sticky stories like what you talked about,
Mhm.
out into the universe and let more people use them. Because a wise man, he learns from his own mistakes, but a really wise man, he learns from other people's experiences and mistakes.
I
So let's
love it.
go here. I think you've got such a beautiful idea on this one as well. You talk about intentionality to craft your story. And if you guys are just joining us, we're spelling out the word gift. We just went from give to get clear on your message. Indelible, it was my framework. And then for Verity, you talk about intentionality to craft your story. Help us understand why intentionality is essential to craft your story.
The main reason intentionality in crafting a story is important is a full story. The timeline from where you started to where you got to is a lot like a Jenga tower with
Mm,
all the blocks and pieces, everything that happens. So if you've got that full Jenga tower, and people who don't know how to intentionally tell a story will give you every single moment that happened along the way, and then this happened and then that happened, oh no, but then this happened first. And I'm sure you've sat through these stories, and it's very hard to keep listening, and it's very hard to get the message that that story should be unwrapping, because the story is the wrapping of the gift. The message
mhm,
is what you get, the point, the moral, the lesson is what they take home. So for me, an intentionally craft story is to look at your Jenga tower of what actually happened and go, what pieces of this details can I remove? The tower still stands. It's still the same flow, but I'm giving it to them in a bite size, easy to take in and enjoy way. And that's, I mean, my job as a speaker coach is to help people. We call it killing their darlings, because sometimes they don't want to leave that bit out of the story. But I'm going, if it's not adding value to the audience, leave it out. So it's intentionally crafting your story to have people on the edge of their seats, curious, connected. The story should be giving them clarity that they're looking
mhm,
for. But the point is to move them towards commitment to the message, whatever the lesson is.
mhm.
And you need to work out, what can I leave out in order to get them there the quickest? Because it can't be so hard for them to unwrap that they give up.
Yes, this is so good. I love that Jenga analogy. And I've been in conversations like that when people are just like, let me set up all three of those this way and this way and this way. And you're like, I don't want to keep playing. So you just pull all three at the bottom and just let it topple. Like, you definitely want to recognize what are the things that have to be there. In my framework,
Mm,
the story framework, I talk about significance. And this is
mm,
intentionality at its core. If it is significant to the core message, it is the thing that cannot be removed. Otherwise, the whole
mm.
message falls.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great visual with the Jenga.
Yeah.
I want to go on to this next thing that has to do with flipping the switch. I think anytime you are presenting a gift, it's not just what is in the gift, it's how it's wrapped and then the energy behind what you do.
Mm,
This is something, if you are thinking about energy work, that has everything to do with your stage presence. If you are not fully present there, meaning you're in the spot where your feet are, your mind is elsewhere,
mm,
times your message, even though it's very well crafted, the words sound beautifully. They even come out of your mouth, no, no, they come out of your mouth beautifully. You think
mm.
about that. If they're not fully connected, it falls on deaf ears.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, I had an experience with my great friend, Marilee Webb. I've had her on my podcast before. She talked about this concept of flipping the switch. All of us came into our rehearsal and we were so tired. I don't know what was going on in our college minds, but we stayed up too late, whatever it was. Felt like everyone in that room, the energy was just on like 5% out of 100. And she gathered us together like little chickens under her wing, sat us down, we crisscrossed applesauce on the floor, and she said, "We need you guys to flip the switch." She had our choreographer run over to the side over there. She's like, "Turn off that switch," and it went dark. We're like, "Okay, we're gonna get a talking to. I can feel it right now." And as soon as she gave us that concept, she's like, "I don't care what's going on outside. I need you to flip the switch and be here, be where your feet are, be where your mind is. But
Mm.
all of us need to be right here because we have to get something done today. And if you aren't here, then where are you?" And
Yeah.
she had our choreographer flip that switch. The lights came on, and I felt like the lights came on us as well. Flipping the
Wow.
switch is absolutely essential to give that gift to your audience.
Mm.
So for you, what does flipping the switch mean for you, Verity?
Sure, I love that. I love that concept, and I'm trying to think of the times in my life when I've had to flip the switch, especially, you've had a bad day and then you've got to get on stage and still
Yeah.
give it your all. And often for me, it is that moment of connection before I go on
Mhm.
stage. I always, when I'm working with people with confidence, it's coming to the breath, breathing
Mm.
out more than I breathe in. So through my nose into my diaphragm, holding for 4, and then out through my mouth for 8. I'll do a few of those. Music helps me to flip the switch. So
Yeah.
I've got songs that I will play that will pump me up. The day that I was competing in the World Championships, it was all online because it was 2021. So it was
Yeah.
really weird. I had no audience. It was on my own on a screen, but I was playing with my sister. We were playing Waka Waka, It's Time for Africa by Shakira, because no one from Africa
Nice.
had ever won the contest. And I was like, I cannot let nerves get in my way of being my best right now. So the music really helps me to flip the switch. And then gratitude, being
Mm.
grateful for the opportunity, grateful for the stage time, grateful for the work that I've put in, and grateful for the fact that an audience is going to give me the gift of their attention. It's not something we're guaranteed in life, and very few people get the privilege of that. So it's all those moments of reminding myself how lucky I am to have this moment that will often help me flip the switch and reconnect to the source.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Great concept. You think about breathing. If we can control our breath, that's a huge element of our stage presence. I remember
Yeah.
going through acting classes. Sometimes we would talk about, well, what are the ways we're going to fill this silence? You're like, well, we're going to breathe through this silence. And if you're like catching your breath in that way, it allows the emotions to come out. A lot of times emotions come through our breath because it's energy and
Yeah.
motion. And if we don't have our breath controlled, this is actually where a lot of young speakers are not able to project because they don't literally have enough air in their system. But if they pause
Yeah.
enough that they can take in sufficient energy and oxygen, they can have their message be projected. It's so important. All right, now
Yeah.
this next section, you talked about filling gaps in for your audience. If you fill
Mm.
in the gaps for your audience, what does that mean for you? Because I'm thinking of a principle called kintsugi, where like the broken dish gets glued back together with gold. What is your concept of filling the gaps for your audience?
Oh, I do love that concept, and there are aspects to this step that can be exactly that. So I'm going to come back to that. For
Beautiful.
me, this was when I was competing again in 2021, trying to win an international speech contest from the bottom of Africa where no one had ever won. And I was lucky because it was lockdown. I could practice in different countries, different cultures, different languages, and I could ask them, what is making sense for you? What do
Mm,
you need more of? What do you need less of? What words don't you understand? And it was only through having feedback from more than 200 people across 5 continents that I could see what the gaps were for them. And so filling in the gaps for me is that Jenga story, knowing what to leave out, because it's actually giving your audience a mental detour if they don't know what you're talking about.
mm,
For example, the story I won with was about really getting through tough times. And in the original version, it was the story of how our family left Zimbabwe after a civil war and moved to South Africa and had to start over living in a caravan park. Now, when I was practicing around the world, and especially when I got to the US, people were like, "What's a caravan? Is that a camper van?" I was like, you know what? I'll just call it a camper van because then you're not wondering what a caravan is. And people were going, "Where's Zimbabwe? When was there a war in Zimbabwe?" And it was too much detail. In a short speech, I was losing them.
mm,
So I realized, I was like, my dad lost his job. We lost our home. We had to live in a camper van. And I actually left out details so as not to create more gaps in the audience's mind. And then where they were asking for more details, I could add it in.
mm,
So, for example, another gap that I discovered through practicing was my story was about how I turned my life around at 40. And an elderly lady on one of the calls said, "This is very inspiring, but I'm in my 70s. What hope is there for me?" And I was humbled. And so I
mm.
went back to my script, and all I had to add in was, it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, or what chapter of your life you're in. something as simple as writing a different story about difficult circumstances can make it easier to bear. But just by putting in, it doesn't matter what chapter you're in, I was addressing that gap for potential audience members. So this is a step that requires feedback. You have to be comfortable and make friends with feedback, but it helps you to strengthen, to leave out details they don't need, to add in context they do. And on the kintsugi idea, the gold in the cracks, one of the most powerful ways to fill in the gaps for your audience, especially if your content is maybe complex, is with analogy. Can you use an analogy that they can see? We're using the analogy of G.I.F.T to explain how to structure a powerful speech. Can you fill in the gaps for them because they can visually see what you're saying because they understand the analogy? So that's how I add gold into a speech, is going, how do we make this visual for them so they're not left with questions? But the only way to do this is to run your content past other people or past a coach and strengthen it together.
Beautiful. One of the things this brings to mind for me is when you are willing to not only package your audience's gift well, but be able to present it. It's in the act of presenting it that you recognize whether you did your job and making sure that this gift was something that they actually wanted. Because sometimes you give a gift and it's awful. It's just so bad. And sometimes you give a gift, you're like, I thought it was just going to be like a small reaction. It was huge. I remember a few years ago, I loved making bread for my neighbors. I usually got pretty nice responses. It was just nice to do that. But there was one lady, her name is Michelle. Shout out to her when she's listening to this. I'm sure she's going to get it. But I would make sourdough bread. And when we brought it over to her, her exuberance and joy that came from that sourdough bread, she's like, oh, thank you so much. I was so excited to eat this. It made me want to go and bake a 5 or 6 dozen more and give them to her because of how much she enjoyed the reception of that gift. Sometimes we won't have big responses to our audience, and sometimes we'll have massive ones, but we do need the feedback to know where those gaps are. So I love that you brought up, you had 200 plus people telling you from all different perspectives, different countries, what they're getting and what they're not. So thank you for that insight. Now we're going to move on to this next thing. For me, whenever you're talking about a gift, if you don't tailor the gift to the audience, it is a little hollow. It's kind of like, hey, thanks for the fruitcake, man. I appreciate it. Fruitcake, for those of you that are from China, is kind of like getting a sun cake or a moon cake that you don't want to eat. when you're thinking of something, you're like, oh, I get this thing that I don't really want, but I do want to say thank you because I appreciate the gesture. All of us at times will have those not so great gifts happen. So when you're tailoring your message, how do you make it something that's meaningful for them? And I want to hear, what are some of the ways that you've tailored your messages so that you're like, this is what's going to work and this is what's not going to work?
So the tailoring ties in really nicely with filling in the gaps for your audience, because you need to know who your audience is. And sometimes the audience is very broad, which is what I had when I was competing. There's 150 countries in Toastmasters. So you literally are speaking to the world. And so the way I try and tailor any speech is to go, is what I'm speaking about speaking to a universal human need, desire, fear, frustration? If it is speaking something that makes us fundamentally human, like love or loss or, failure, overcoming difficulties, if you're speaking along those themes and threads, most people will resonate. And unfortunately, what a lot of speakers do is they speak from their perspective and they don't realize they're sometimes excluding some of the members and of the audience. And so I had this experience and for anyone who's watching, go and look Verity Price Toastmasters. You can go watch the speech. It'll make a lot more sense if you've seen it. But in the early versions of the speech, it was all about me being unhappy at 40. I was a single woman who'd never got married and wanted to have kids. And it was all about me not getting my fairy tale, which the woman in the audience loved. They were like, oh, this is, yeah, we feel your pain. And the men in the audience were going, if we have to listen to another woman complaining about not having a fairy tale, we're going to lose our minds. And I realized I was only tailoring my speech to one demographic. So I looked at my story, and actually, with the help of my sister Kay, we realized if I told more of my dad's story of how he'd lost his job and had to start over in a foreign country selling insurance door to door and losing his corner office job, but he'd turned it around with a good attitude, I now was speaking to everyone. I was speaking to women, I was speaking to men, old, young, whatever. So look at your content and go, is this universal? Is this a frustration, a fear, a dream, a hope that most people will go, oh, yeah, I felt like that before? Because then you're tailoring it for your audience. And it is being able to get away from your own perspective and go, would this be valuable to someone else?
This is so important. One of the stems of language that I like to use for anyone that wants to practical tackle how to tailor that message is what this means for you is, and then you insert a benefit. If you can use that phrase and make sure that the benefits are universal, like what Verity was talking about, this is where the real value comes into your speech. Because when they're like, well, what this means for you is, as you are communicating intimately with your audience, they can understand one, and then they can implement it and get value from it. Suddenly, using that type of a framework, you're able to distill value from the story. If you can't connect, then you're not only disconnected, which is kind of sucky, but you're not able to get any value from the story. And it's a waste of everybody's time. So why not talk to every single person you can? Now, there is a challenge with tailoring your message. Sometimes you don't know every single person in the audience. What have you been able to do to be able to tailor that message into its essence? Because I know sometimes people will get caught in the thick of thin things. We know that you want to make sure that you get to that core desire, like you brought up. You want to make sure it's a human need. How do you do that in the practical, tactical sense, Verity?
I think, I mean, I do choose topics that are universal. I speak on innovation, and then that's where I get clear on my message. If you can change your thinking, you can change your results. I don't think there's anyone anywhere in the world who won't go, oh, that is a good point. When I change my thinking, I get better results. So I've learned that I can pitch that same message. I might tell the story a bit differently, but I can pitch it at any level because I can see how quickly I get a nod.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, wow, that's true. And so that's where the getting clear on your message is so important. I'm constantly looking at, have I got sticky statements throughout a speech that people are nodding? And sometimes the only way to get there is to be in front of a live audience and notice what gets a nod or a reaction from people, and you go, let me keep that. Because you might have something you think's brilliant, but no one moves when you say it, and you go, actually, maybe only I think that's valuable. So unfortunately, the only way to really find what's working for your audience is to be in front of audiences and test it. And then you just start keeping the stuff that works and let go of the stuff that doesn't. So it's a process, but I found that the more universal the message, it generally speaks to most people. If I'm speaking to, do you want to have a successful life? Do you want to wake up feeling happy, motivated, invigorated? There's very few people who say no. And then what I've also learned, if I ask a question like that, and I'm a very interactive speaker, so I'll say, raise your hand. I'm one of those speakers, but like, raise your hand if you want to wake up motivated. And I do a whole thing. And then I'll go, if anyone next to you doesn't have their hand raised, just check they've still got a pulse.
Perfect.
They laugh, everyone laughs. It's done. Like we're connected in that moment. Not everyone's always going to put up their hand, but I've learned that you can manage that with a bit of humor. And I found my resistant person. You're going to work with me today. You're going to ask me hard questions, and they're like, yeah. And I go, cool, let's do this. And now you're connected. So just be okay with things not being okay. You'll be okay.
Great. I love that. Now, one of the things you talk about in this gift framework is to tie it all together. This is not just taking your message and saying this is important. It's packaged well, but you're bundling all of these ideas and giving it in such a way that one makes sense and then is applicable. Can you talk about tying things together from your perspective?
So for me, tying things together is in the conclusion part of a presentation or a speech or a story. The really consummate storytellers and presenters, what they tend to do at this towards the end of a presentation is they don't need to say in summary or in conclusion. It becomes obvious that someone's
Mhm.
tying things together when they say, so as you've seen, when this happens, it means that. When this happens, it means that. When you're struggling and you do that, and what they're doing is they're tying back to every little golden moment that's happened in the presentation, so that when you get to your final sentence, it's that kind of mic drop moment of, and that's why what you can take away from this is whatever the call to action is. But your conclusion should write itself. If you've
Mhm.
written a really great story or a great presentation, when you're getting to tying it all together at the end, all you actually need to do is look back at your content and go, what are the golden moments I want to really kind of build the momentum with here? And ideally, going all the way back to how you started, whatever question you asked or startling statement you said to grab their attention, that should be your final sentence, so that they get that sense of it's a bow and a flourish, and here, this is yours, take it home, do something with it. So that's the piece that I think a lot of communicators miss, is they tell a
Mhm.
great story, but they forget to emphasize the things they want the audience to remember in a fresh way,
Mhm.
maybe with some extra insights, but no new content.
Yeah.
It's only tying together everything you've already said.
Let me help all the people that are listening be able to see how valuable this is. If you think about a compilation of a book or you think about a play, tying it all together, this is when the audience feels that catharsis, that purging of emotions. It's like, oh, I'm so glad that this loop got closed by that person. I'm glad that that relationship happened. Oh, and I'm glad that that villain got his comeuppance and now he's in prison. It's the denouement, which is the falling action. And as you've tied all these together, you're closing all those gaps that you opened up at the beginning of the story. And if you don't do that effectively, that's when you feel like, is there more? Am I supposed to understand something? That's that wonder wander effect that we talk about so often, because the audience wants to feel completed. They want to feel like the loop was opened and then closed. And if we don't tie it
Yeah.
all together, it's kind of like handing a gift that's disheveled. It's got the butcher paper on there, and you put the duct tape, and then like you got one string, and it's kind of like janky. You're like, hey, here you go. And it's kind of like swabbling back and forth. Ah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Great job.
What was
Like,
that?
so I'm so grateful we had this conversation. I've got one last idea that I wanted to bring up with you, Verity, because I think you will be
Mm.
able to answer this in such a profound way. It'll summarize beautifully. Stage presence for me is the ability to command attention instead of demand attention. I think this is a massive distinction. Would you mind sharing a story or an experience that highlights this idea?
Wow, commanding instead of demanding. I love that. I love that. I'm trying to think. And all that's coming to mind, and I'm going to trust it because it's such a great question. Is I often, especially when I'm running my courses, and I run them with various groups and
Mhm.
levels of experience around the world, is people think that great communicators are extroverts, and that extroverted energy commands
Mm,
attention, but it often demands it because it's
mm,
loud and it takes up
yeah.
a lot of space. I've often seen quiet, conservative, like reserved people command a room from a place of authenticity. I did a TED talk in 2018 where the only speaker on that day who got a standing ovation was the most nervous person in the room. You could actually see her jeans shaking on her legs, like the fabric was flapping. But she absolutely commanded that room because she was so fresh and authentic in her nerves that they fell in
Mm,
love with her. So it's really understanding. And I think the biggest problem that happens in communication is we think we have to be perfect. We think we have to be slick and polished.
Mm.
And I'm often, when I'm coaching people, I'm like, we need to take the polish off.
Mm.
That polish demands, like, look how good I am, but it actually disconnects. And so it's like you need to take the polish off so that you can earn their attention,
Mm.
and in a way that they feel like, oh, I want to give this to you. So I'm not sure if I've answered your question, but I love that concept. And often, well, always, authenticity will earn and command attention. And too much polish, too much slick can look good on the day, but it doesn't connect.
Absolutely. Wow.
Mm.
What a great conversation. I am so thankful that you took the time, energy, and effort to be here with us, to pour some stories into the audience and into me. And I hope some of the things that I shared as well were valuable for you. Guys,
Very.
this was such a wonderful thing. Why do people need to watch the Leveling Up podcast? To give them a little endorsement. Why do you think this is valuable for people?
I think being able to hear rich conversations about how to level up your communication, your ability to connect with people and communicate your value so
Mm.
that people remember you after you leave an interaction. I think this is the biggest gift that anyone can give to themselves. So that's why I think so, because I've loved this conversation. I love your insights. I love the way you view communication, the heart that you bring to it.
Mm.
And if more of us were doing that, more of us would be connecting heart to heart. And that's the quickest way to change someone's mind, change their heart first. So
Beautiful.
that's what this does.
Well, thank you so much, Verity. Wonderful conversation. And absolutely, guys, if you didn't get the whole thing, definitely come back, listen again. She is such a delight and 2021 world champion of public speaking. Man, you have just gotten even better with time. So I'm so grateful for this time that we had to spend together. It was a delight in every sense of the word. Guys, keep leveling up your life. And if you haven't gotten this yet, over here at my 3 reasons stage fright costs and why you must fix it, I'm so passionate about helping people step into their own confidence through understanding their story, because you have a story that is meaningful inside of you. And if you don't take the time, energy, and effort to pull it out and extract it so that somebody else can use it, we're not leaving that gift for the audience. So please reach out to me, reach out to Verity. We've got wonderful things we want to share with you. We're just starting this conversation. So keep connected. God bless, guys. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.